Hello, Sketchnoters. Welcome to week 3 of learning your elements. This week we are going to look at bullets, dividers, and connectors. So bullets help you with lists, dividers divide ideas in a different way than containers because they don't pop out the same way. They just give division on your page or your canvas. And then connectors will help you connect ideas or thoughts or icons and also show a path. Just like last week, I will be pausing after each sort of set of elements so that you can play some catch up if you don't want to do it along at the time. And at the end, there will be a full sort of screenshot of all of them that we've done if you want to watch the whole video through. So let's get going. So I'm going to start with bullets. And one of my favorite bullets that I probably use the most is just a simple square. And then on the outside of the square, you'll see I made my pen a little bit, my brush stroke rather, a little bit thicker. And so you can do this with a thicker marker if you have one, if you're analog. I'm going to draw a line on the bottom and a line down the side that doesn't quite reach the end. And so I have a shadowed box. What you may have just seen is my color changed on me. That was not planned, but little tip here about Taisui. If you press sort of and hold for just a quick second, it will take on whatever color you're on. It will change it to it, which is great, unless you do it by accident like I did. At any rate, this could be your first bullet container, number 1. Awesome. The next one that I use probably most often is a tent card looking thing. So I'm going to draw a parallelogram. I actually want that to be a little bit thicker. Draw a parallelogram. And then from the side of the parallelogram, I'm going to draw a triangle. And then I'll get a thinner pen or a thinner brush stroke. And in this case, I just sort of put little lines so it looks a bit shadowed. And that could be your second one. Now you don't need to make it quite as thick as I did. I use this if I'm using big numbers, or if I have like step 1, step 2, I can do that. Although often when I do steps, I do little footprints, but we'll get to that in icons. Another one that you might want to check out here is another kind of tent card. It sort of mixes these two. So I'm going to draw a square and then a triangle out the back. And again, I might shadow this in a little bit and put number 3. So it looks like, oh, the shadow's not great in there, but I'll fill in a little bit more. It looks like it's a standing tent card. Okay. And the last one that I like to use sort of combines the bullets and the containers. And what I do for this one is I will draw a rectangle. Then I'm going to draw a little ribbon sort of motif down the side here. So it's just 2 lines and then almost like a pack my mouth, a greater than or less than sign on top of a triangle. And with my fill tool that we talked about last week, if you're going digital, I can say, okay, fill this in, and I'm going to pick a color. So let's say I want to do it in like this yellow. I can now fill that in so it stands out. And then I can come back and write like the number 4. And then I can write whatever idea I have in there. So it stands my steps out. This is really good if you have a step with like a single word and then you want to write your notes underneath that have more detail in there. So there you have them. Those are the first set of bullets. Okay, I'm going to move on now to dividers. Dividers I used to use a lot. The biggest divider that I used is a fairly simple one. It's simply just a cloud. And then when I had my next idea, I would do the next cloud around it and then a cloud around the next idea. So it would just be a series of bubbles basically around a page. It offset my ideas really nicely and it showed me, okay, this is this idea and then the next and the next. Because I do a lot of radial sketching, which is idea at the middle and then, or main idea at the middle and then supporting ideas around, that sort of worked for me. I veered away from that a little bit. I'm not really sure why. It's just styles change over time. So that's one you could definitely use. Another one that I just recently actually started using, and I can use it to offset titles as well. There's no name for it. I call it the line squiggle loop. So it's literally just that. You're going to make a line, you're going to make a little squiggle and then loop. And then you're going to do the same thing but backwards. So loop, squiggle, line. And that offsets ideas really nicely. So if you were to have a title, for example, I ran out of room, hence the exclamation marks. And then I would do the same thing underneath, but upside down. So as you can see, the dividers pop the title a little bit without putting it into those containers, and it makes it look a little bit more artsy. Another one that I like to use is simple. It's like Morse code, I call it. It's sort of a line and then a dot and then a line and then a dot and a line and a dot. A line. Pretty easy. And again, you can play with the thickness of what you want to do. So if I really wanted to, I could have put like bigger dots in there if that worked for me. The last one's a little bit close. You'll see what I'm doing right now with the digital, which is why I made my switch from analog. I feel like I can, for me, I can just take more risks. Okay, you also have one that could be like just a straight line. This is great if you have something written over top. And then you almost do like a fun little bracket. That can really offset ideas. A variation on the Morse code is a dot, long line, dot, circle, dot, long line, dot. And then we can get ones that are a bit more fancy. My parents gave me a sketch book last Christmas, I think. And I did this sort of, I wanted a lights motif, so I was playing around with it, and this was analog that I did it. But all you have to sort of do is go up and say, okay, I want there. And you sort of make like little, almost peaks. You can do a quick little loop if you want. And then I went down and I actually changed the colors. And I said, okay, there we go. I made them red little dots. And then out from there, they look like little twinkle lights, which I think can be really cute. Now I did these ones in red, but of course you can do them in yellow, you can do them in purple, you can do them any color you want. In Taiyasui, one of the things that you can do is use in the paid version, they have a grid function. So if you go down to the ruler and choose grid, it will only let you draw in a straight line. So you'll see, no matter what I try to do, it only goes those straight lines, which is pretty cool. So if I wanted to create a divider with that, I could simply draw boxes. Or I could go opposite ways. And that can divide ideas as well. And the last divider I want to show you is going to connect with our connectors, actually. It's a bit of an arrow. So I just draw a straight line with a diagonal out. Same thing underneath, the diagonal out. And then to give it a little bit sort of more depth, I like to draw a triangle on the top. And so that divides ideas, but it also shows connecting of ideas that I will get to in the next bit. So let's have a look at all of these. There are some of our dividers. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to talk about connectors. And like I said, connectors connect different ideas together. So generally they're arrows. So I will start with a pretty traditional arrow. I just draw the beginning of a rectangle and then an arrowhead out the top. So two little lines. One thing I try to eyeball with arrows is this, and I'll just show you here. I'll go to another color. Is I sort of take the halfway point and I draw out. And so that's where I picture the arrowhead to go. I used to draw them really lopsided. This is not anything astronomical to figure out, but it does sort of help if you sort of eyeball where the middle of that first back line is. Okay, now from here, I'm going to draw almost like a shadowed. I'm just copying exactly, but just a little bit behind. And then with the fill tool, if you're using a digital app, from behind, I can go here, make sure it's in that bottom corner there. So it's a full fill, unless you wanted a pattern, that's great too. And then I just need to tap, and it fills that in, so it looks really shadowed for us, which is lovely. Another sort of fancier one that you might choose to use is kind of a squiggly one. I saw this one recently online and I thought it was kind of cute. I haven't perfected it yet, not that it needs to be, but so you sort of start with big arches and then go on to point. Connectors can also just be simple dots. You can start and say, okay, here's an idea that you may have written to the left, and then take it down to this next idea here. And then finally, if you want a sort of a turnaround, this one's a little trickier for me. So I draw a line, sort of an arc up, and then we do an arc down. And it looks a little bit like it's sort of flipped around. Now in this case, this is a little bit too thick on the left there, so I might go in and correct that. If I choose, oh, that's way too big a brush. There. And that's how it may look as the end product. So there's not many, but there's a few connectors that you might choose to use when you're looking to link ideas. So that's it. That's bullets, dividers, and connectors. And if we're going to look at them all together, there are some ideas for you. Go ahead and give it a go.